I mentioned a moment ago that the DNA of an entrepreneur probably contains strands of inspiration and strands of perspiration, and that tonight we would honor those who have been inspired as well as acknowledge those who inspire. I would like to introduce someone who has been inspired, and now he is about the task of inspiring, and is one of our own. About 5 years ago, Dan Hassan received his degree from Fairleigh Dickinson University. During his time here at FDU, he was involved in Sigma Chi. He did service work with the Children's Miracle Network and Community Hope, which of course provides housing for troubled teens and veterans. He has always been helpful with students, even while he was here at FDU, especially those who are interested in technology. And he'll probably talk about some of the technology and some of his involvement with technology in his speech tonight. And he's always supported education, be it for the B student, or the A student, or the C student. We won't talk about the other letters. In addition, he has started now to be a guest speaker, as he was a guest speaker in July for our Discover Business Teen Camp. Dan joined BCM in 2006 as Senior Vice President of Sales after successful forays into the worlds of finance and real estate. At that point, the company was a full-service, direct response media agency, and the success of that company laid the foundation for the research and development of BCM TV Solutions. In 2009, Daniel became CEO and chairman of the board to lead that company from a research and development phase, to a commercialization phase. Following a successful technical test in New England, Clickable TV was successfully launched commercially in Alabama in January 2011. Under Dan's leadership, BCM has also developed an enhanced TV platform for new product and a new product line. I've known Dan now for I'm not sure how many years. It's always nice to welcome back home someone who has been successful. Not only has been successful, but has remained grounded in the basic foundations that make one a success. I've done it, and I will hope to give all that I can so that others can do it as well. Dan Hassan. Dan?
How you guys doing tonight, all right? Great, excellent. You guys are lucky, you get me in a suit. If you come to my office, I'm usually wearing flip-flops and shorts, so I dressed up a bit for you here. My name's Dan Hassan. I started BCM along with some friends in 2006. You know, when you start a company, you're really kind of unsure where the path leads you. You think it's going to be a couple weeks, a couple of months, ends up being a couple of years, and things start going the right way. And it is a long and tough journey. So I think kind of what I can offer you guys the best today is tell you some of the things I had to learn the hard way, what not to do, and if you have any other questions about anything else, I'd be more than happy to address them. BCM is a technology company. We provide technology services to over 90 broadcast TV stations in the US, as well as different cable providers. You guys have probably seen things on TV where you can now interact with your TV signal and click OK to find more information about what you're watching on television. We pioneered a lot of those technologies and a lot of those systems in broadcast TV as well as in cable. But it all starts from pretty humble beginnings, and like I said, it's not an easy path, but a very rewarding one along the way. So when I started BCM with a friend, I actually started in a basement. I wanted to get into the entertainment industry and learn about TV and movies and try to do something there and maybe put investment in or work with a production studio or something like that. So I had a friend of mine that said, you know, Dan, I know these guys who are starting a production studio, and they would really like you to see what they're doing and maybe be part of this movie they're trying to finance. I'm like, all right, I'll talk to these guys. I didn't know much about the space at the time. So he brought over 4 or 5 people to my place in my basement. We wanted to watch this movie this guy was producing to see if I could help him get it for distribution or some seed money for it. So this gentleman's there, and he's pitching me on this film, and it's the worst presentation I've ever seen. It was absolutely horrible. It was about an hour and 45 minutes. He played clips of the movie he wanted me to help him work on and finance, but the movie was about guys trying to make a movie and stealing money from their investors. So it was a totally just bizarre situation. So I'm halfway through and I'm thinking, okay, all right, this is fine. Let's keep going, and I'll roll with it, and I'll be nice to the guy. And he's going through everything he wants to do, and I'm listening to him, and I'm being very kind and understanding. I'm trying to have a dialogue about it. But, you know, I gave him his time, and he spoke to me, and we kind of then, I said, okay, well, I'll reach out to you if it makes sense, but I knew in the back of my head it really didn't. But he spoke with such a passion about it. You know, who am I to really rain on his parade if he thinks he can make this happen? In the room with us that night was a guy who was a broker. He worked at a Swiss bank. And another gentleman who was there who I just introduced myself to once and just had a short dialogue with before the presentation or the pitch started. So the gentleman with the movie studio gets up and he leaves. He drives back to his home. And it's just myself and these 2 other gentlemen who I just met there. So the stockbroker says to me, he said, I would have kicked his ass out 5 minutes into the presentation, pardon the language. And the other gentleman there comes and talks to me and says, you were really nice. You didn't yell at him, you didn't kick him out of the house. You knew it was terrible from the second he opened his mouth, but you stood there and you listened to him, you heard him out. And that's actually the guy I ended up starting up the company with. Imagine if I had actually been brash, mean, an upset person and said, you know, this is not really worth my time, or kicked him out or cut him short. Imagine where the dialogue would have gone. It probably wouldn't have happened. And I've kind of lived my life by the moniker that kindness is probably the greatest influence you can have with people. I think if you have an open mind, an open heart, have an open dialogue with people and are nice to them, you're going to get that in return. So it actually opened up an opportunity where me and this gentleman were discussing some ideas he had for an organization to start. And I ended eventually, you know, starting that company with him. He had an idea for what was at that time a tracking technology for direct response. So you guys have probably seen people put up, you know, shows on TV saying, you know, call this phone number and buy this product now. All the as seen on TV stuff. He was doing some technical trials of his own in his small one-man shop at the time. So I came in and I decided to help him out and work on this company called Back Channel Media at the time. Starting a company and kind of getting into the foray is a little scary. You know, he had a small office in Boston. I lived in New Jersey. I commuted pretty much every week to Boston, crashed on his sofa, got back up the next morning into the office and started working together. You know, for me, it was about cutting my teeth. It was my first real job where I had a lot of autonomy and a lot of self-responsibility. Perhaps the best experience I ever had before BCM or Back Channel Media was actually my first job out of college, which was working at Weichert Realtors, of all places. It taught me a few things about humility. The first day I get into the real estate office right on Madison Avenue here in Madison, New Jersey, right off Madison Avenue on Main Street, they hand me a stack. I look at this stack, and I'm like, what is this? It's your cold call list, all right? It's pretty much Xerox straight out of the phone book of the white pages. So they wanted me to start calling every phone number on the list to try to convince people to do something I thought was easy before I got into real estate. I had to call people and try to convince them to sell their homes. It was a very, very tough task. I got hung up maybe 1,000+ times. Out of that, a couple leads came from it. But what it did is it taught me humility in the sense that you got to keep trying and trying, pick up the phone, keep dialing, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur. No one knows who you are come day one. The best thing you can possibly do is pick up the phone and try to get someone to listen to you and at least try to pitch someone on your topic or your ideas or try to get a meeting. So that's, I think, probably one of the best pieces of advice I could give you if you want to start your own business. Don't be afraid of the phone, pick it up, it's not going to bite you, call as many numbers as possible, just try to get in front of people and show them what you're up to. And you can only do so much from the confines of your office or your apartment. You got to get out there and get in front of people. Also, what it taught me is that uncomfortable situations are probably the best thing for personal growth. I'd never done cold calling before. I walked into the room, I picked up the phone, was dialing, and it wasn't something that felt good. It felt unnatural. It felt not normal. But you learn a lot from that. You gain a lot of experience from that. And things that take you out of your comfort zone are perhaps the best things to teach you along the way. So this is actually Eric Martin. Eric's a graduate of FDU, as you probably tell. Me and him started the company out of college as well. I hired him probably about a year after joining. And he's actually our head of cable sales. This is a picture of him on a fishing trip we took a couple weeks ago. Just give you a little insight into kind of what we're like. So after working at BCM for a while and doing cold calling and trying to get people to buy and sell media and bootstrapping the company, making any sort of revenue we possibly could while we were trying to build our technologies, I kind of delved into what the actual guts of the organization were. You know, we kind of had to raise money and reinvest money and get people and our friends and family to help us out. And I started diving into what's the actual ownership of this company I'm involved in. So for you entrepreneurs out there or budding entrepreneurs are looking that you want to start your own organization, one of the most important things I could say is know who owns your cap table. Your stock is your organization. A lot of people will give away stock or part of their company to someone they just kind of know, someone whose sofa they slept on, and it was real bloody. The guy who I started the company with, gave a lot of stock to people, everyone from, cleaning ladies to the garbage guys who we knew from around the block. It was friends who he just hung out with. It really wasn't a way you want to hold the assets of your organization, which is that time pretty much your cap table. So guard that like it's your life, because it is a lifeblood of your organization, is your ownership structure. Also, you want to avoid entangling alliances. When I got into BCM, there was actually one person who owned 10% of the company in what's called non-dilutive stock, which means that people could come in, invest in the organization. He still stays at 10% or his value grows and everyone else gets decreased. Try to make sure that when you strike these deals or you have partners you want to work with or even other investors, make the agreements as simple as possible, because you don't want to end up getting snaked by something around the corner. George Washington said in his farewell address to the United States, avoid entangling alliances. It'll be the end of this democracy. And you can see where some of those alliances have got us so far. It's not a pretty situation. Also, no post-it note contracts. I had a guy come in who worked at the company, who was doing services for the company, consulting, came in with a post-it note, and he said someone in the company had promised him a certain amount of stock. Everyone's going to come out of the woodworks wanting to part of your organization, especially if you have a good idea, which I'm sure a lot of you do. So be very careful about who you work with and how you construct these contracts. So after working at BCM for a while and developing some early technologies and bootstrapping, we really found a breakthrough in the organization. So before then, we were building some small technology pieces, some data tracking software, some television media buying software. But we really found something that was a breakthrough technology. We saw the entire field around us, and there was really a gap in interactive TV. Really people haven't found a way to interact with their TV sets the way they could with the computer or with their mobile phones. So we said, we think we have an idea of how to develop this product and roll it out pretty successfully. So that's the key. If you're an entrepreneur, you want to see a hole in the market, one that you can attack and attack quickly, be it selling B2B, direct to consumer, and you want to develop that product rapidly and get in front of people very quickly. But one thing that's important is that you have to have faith in your concept. When you are trying to sell something to someone, it comes through very quickly if you're not being genuine. I mean, you guys have all probably met a salesperson before that you just knew was trying to get money out of you and didn't care at all about the relationship or about the product they were selling. So have 100% faith in what you're doing, and I think it really comes through. And that's probably the strongest selling point when you're talking to people about what your products are, what you're trying to offer. Just be genuine, be real, and people appreciate that more than slick talk or anything like that. Just be honest with your potential clients. When you're building a product, it's always going to cost twice as much. We built our initial prototype. It was supposed to take 4 months to build, ended up taking 8 months to build. So the entire time our prototype is being developed, we're all sweating, we're all working, we're all worried that we're going to run out of cash in the meantime. So we're still at the same time scrambling to really raise money and create revenue for the organization. And my recommendation is that if you work with people or you have a group of people you're working with, try to hire, if you can afford it, try to hire external people to do building for you and to do a lot of this work for you, because as an entrepreneur, you're really the soul of the organization. You're the one that pushes it forward. And it's better to hire someone that's a third party that's going to tell you, I can deliver this product on time and guaranteed, than trying to build it yourself. It's always going to take much longer to build it yourself. And that's a mistake that I made that really cost me a lot of time. And when you're a startup, time is money. And if you don't have enough money, you have to let people go they don't want to let go. So it ends up being a very emotional and tough type of thing if you run off schedule. I'm not going to talk a lot about leadership and things like that and leadership qualities. I'm going to talk more about my running a company. But leadership is something that is important. But people are perhaps the most important part of the organization when you're a small company. If you have a good idea, you're energetic, you're going to get an initial group of people to follow you. But when it comes time to building a product and prototyping it and getting ready for a launch, people can be your greatest asset. They also can be your greatest liability. When you're running a startup or when you have a few people in your organization, you're not paying huge dollars. Most people usually take less money to work for a startup. And from that, you get either really highly motivated people that step up to the challenge of working all the time and being paid less, or you get people that kind of will not live up to your expectations. But you gotta have to work with that. Realize that you're not an organization that can afford the best people in the world, but you gotta do the best with what you have. And when you see people have certain weaknesses, try to complement them, try to complement their strengths, and then supplement their weaknesses with your own ability and your own strength and the people around you. Let's see if this goes. It's all right. So we started actually, we created a demo for our product. And pretty much what the demo was pretty cool. You could watch a TV spot, you could watch a 30-second ad, and you could actually click on it with your remote control, and we'd send you an email right away about the product or what you're learning about, or what you want to learn about. So we were able to show a McDonald's commercial. I'm sitting at home on TV. I can click the OK button, and all of a sudden in my email box is a coupon for $1 off a Big Mac or something like that. Really cool technology, really a lot of fun. But what we found is that when we were doing demos, people either loved or hated our technology. And that's something that you want. If you create something new, people are going to have a very strong reaction to it. Half the people said this is great, half the people said I don't like it. But when you actually are talking to people about your product and are testing it and are introducing new products to people, keep asking questions until you get a yes, a no, or the reason why someone doesn't want to work with you or buy something from you. I think a lot of times people get a no and they don't ask why they got a no, if you get rejected or no one wants to buy your product. I remember when I was working at Weichert, I had this lady and she had her house in Chatham here, and she wanted to sell her house, and I was really close to getting the contract signed. I had it all filled out. I showed up there and I'm like, okay, Meredith, we're going to make this happen. This house is going to go on the market this week. We'll get it sold in 3 to 5 months. It was a really good real estate market back then before I left. And we'll get you out the door, and people are going to come in, look at the place. We're going to have open houses. It's going to be fantastic, and you're going to sell your house and you can move on to a smaller place. After I talked to her, she said, I don't know about this. I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to make this happen. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, I had her at a contract a minute ago, and now all of a sudden she's doesn't want to work with me. What could have possibly happened? I kept asking her, is it this price structure? Is it how much commission you're giving me? Do you want me to sell the house for more? After about 15 minutes of asking questions, the reason that she didn't want to put her house on the market was because she was afraid people were going to track mud inside the house. That's the only reason why. So I said, okay, great. They can wear slippers, or they can wear like booties, or they can take their shoes off when they walk in. And she said, okay, that sounds fine. And that was the one hurdle. This small little thing held up the entire conversation. And that's something you wouldn't know unless you ask a lot of questions to people about why they like or why they don't like your product, and don't rest on your laurels about it. So when we were demoing our technology, we wanted to really put on a good face that we were, this hotshot company and people want our product. So we actually went to the W Hotel in New York in Times Square. I don't know if you guys know the W Hotel. Maybe 5 years ago it was kind of the place to be in New York. And all the ad agency people and technology people wanted to go there to hang out and have drinks or whatever. So we set up our demo in the W Hotel there. We had about 100 meetings in 10 days. When I say meetings, I mean presentations. So 10 hours a day, I'd be presenting the product, running through it with people. And it was fantastic. A lot of people liked it, a lot of people didn't. But we didn't get any lukewarm responses. But in that time we were in the W Hotel, we actually put on the facade of being a really big company. We ended up staying in a flea bag hotel called the Tudor Hotel. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. It's next to the UN. It's like, I could lay in the bed and touch the light switch with my toes. It's like really, really tiny rooms. So these are just some of the experiences I had. So we actually went around New York City in addition to doing our presentations at the W Hotel. And we went to this guy's office, and the guy was the CEO of a company called WPP. It's the largest ad agency. It's owned by Group M. They probably control about $10 billion of TV advertising in the US. This guy holds the keys to the kingdom for a guy like us trying to get in the door. So I go in, I'm excited. I got a bunch of people liking my demonstration of the W. I'm all, think I'm on top of the world. I get in there, do the presentation for him. About 2 minutes in, he says, if you bring this to any of my clients, I'm going to torpedo it. Can you please leave my office? I got kicked out of the office of potentially the biggest client we could have possibly had. And it was a failure. I felt abysmal. We worked about a year and a half on the project. We'd gotten in front of the right person. I just got booted out of his office after like 5 minutes. But I was very nice. I was very thankful for his time that he offered me. And eventually, years later, about a year and a half ago, I saw him in Miami, and I just ran into him. I said, thanks for that. It made me reflect on the product, what we were doing. And today, him and I have a very good relationship. He's happy to see where we've come. It wasn't the right time then. But always be nice in rejection, because failure is an opportunity to learn good things about what you're doing, and an opportunity to take advantage of some things out there that you might not have seen. The Japanese, when they approach business and they see an error on the construction line or the production line, they celebrate. They go out and they have a good time because they know they can make their product better the next day. And that's kind of the approach I take every day. Failure is okay. You can always get around it. You can always use it to move on and turn it into strength. Have next steps when you're showing people your products. I think that's a big mistake that I made. We showed people our product. They loved it. They were really excited about it. They said, okay, what do we do next? And I said, I don't know. I didn't really think about that. So I had to kind of go back, draw up a contract, kind of figure out how we're going to get paid on it, and throw something together. And people could tell it's rushed. People could tell you didn't think through it. We were just so looking for approval as a small company that people liked what we were doing. We really didn't know about the next step. Hey, everyone liked what we were doing, so what does it matter? People in business are going to feel cheated unless you give them next steps to go on. Imagine showing someone a shiny new car, but they can't get it for another year and a half. Like when you go to an auto show or you see concept cars, you're like, I want that, but I can't have it. Why isn't it out yet? So always give people something to hold on to or a next step, or else you're going to leave a contact wavering out there and they're not going to take you seriously. Have a place to go from the initial touch point. Kind of the last thing, if you're in technology, you make what's called demos. So you pretty much make, you have a computer or a setup or a server, and you try to show people how your technology works. We learned the hard way to make a small demo. This is our demonstration kit we had when we first started the company. And that's Andrew Mione there. He pretty much helped me move this thing around everywhere in the US. We had those servers, we had the computer, we had that box down there, which was huge. Asked a lot of questions in New York moving that around. And we had also a 42-inch TV we would bring around with us to do these demonstrations. So what I'm saying is be agile, be smart, think about what you're going to be doing and plan ahead. And we obviously didn't do that. We were pushing that thing around LA, New York. We actually got stopped in the bottom of 30 Rockefeller Center with that thing. No one knew who we were. We kind of worked our way down. They were going to NBC. So just be prepared and make sure you can show people what you're doing very quickly and very easily off a laptop or something like that. So at this point, we had gotten our prototype working. We had demoed to a lot of people, a lot of potential clients out there. But what we found is that we got a little full of ourselves. We got what's the Greeks, or in Latin or Greek, sorry, it's called hubris. You had excessive pride. People liked the product, we were excited about it, we were a little brash. We said, you know, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna hire some great people. We're gonna go out there, we're gonna hire people from, you know, IBM, we're gonna hire people from all these huge technology companies, pay them, you know, $500,000 plus salaries, like crazy stuff that we think, you know, we can go ahead and get the right people to make this stuff happen. This company's gonna fly then. You learn very quickly that's not the case. In a company, you have to run really lean as a startup. The thing that kills small companies is overhead. Overhead will end a company quicker than it can begin. Your rent, your light bills, water bills, all that stuff, and then individual employee costs, healthcare, all these things that can kind of start adding up and really being a damper on the company. So I would say run lean, make sure you have everyone on the same level. You know, I could be the CEO of a company, but I can do his job. I can help him with his work. I can help her make herself better and assist her on a day-to-day basis. So really make sure you're on the same level with everyone you work with, and they'll actually respect you for it. That applies whether you're in a small company or big company. Everyone's your equal, you're all on the same mission, you're all here to help the organization and do something new. Also, something we learned really quick is that if someone doesn't work out, if you hire someone and it's not working out as an entrepreneur, get rid of them as quickly as possible. It sounds terrible, it sounds upsetting. I didn't feel good about it. I had to fire people I knew that I'd hired from outside the company, family, friends that had kind of come in to work with the organization. It's tasking, but if someone's not working out in a company within the first early period, they're not going to work out in the long period, just the reality of it. You know, Jack Welch said the same thing. If someone came into GE and it wasn't a fit, he let them go as quickly as possible, and don't delay the inevitable. And don't get caught up with giving people big contracts. We really messed up with that. You know, we gave people very rich salaries, huge severance payments. But if you are going to fire someone, do treat them well on the way out, because you never know where that person's going to be or how you're going to interact with them in the future. Always treat people with a lot of respect. Never get angry. When I talk to someone and I might get upset, I always write down on the top of my paper, don't get angry, because that's not a good emotion to use when you're actually conducting business. It's not the proper emotion. So this is kind of a tough time in the company for me. The guy who I started it with was really a big inventor. He had a lot of great ideas, and it was a partnership at the time. We had outside investors. We'd raised, you know, a couple $1 million from different people, about 20 total investors in the company. But he was heading operations. I was doing sales. I was selling. I had, you know, maybe 90 people under contract, a lot of great stuff in the pipeline. But a lot of times as an inventor and as an entrepreneur, it's tough to move on to the next phase of commercialization. Running a business, you can be an idealist, you can be an inventor, but it's not for dreamers. If you want to make money and turn the corner from building a product to commercializing it, you have to be ready to go beyond the prototype phase. It's not a research project, it's not a science project. Once you have an application or a product, it's a company now. You have to treat it like a company. It was a personal challenge for me. You know, business hurts when it becomes personal. This guy who I started the company with, a lot of investors wanted him out, wanted me to replace him. We were best of friends for a long period of time, for 3 years at this point, and I had to replace him as CEO. And it was something that was tough for me to do, tough for him, obviously, and it was something he'd worked a long time on as well. But something you have to have as an entrepreneur, and as kind of cruel as it sounds, you have to have ice in the veins to some extent. You can't let these types of things end the organization and affect people beyond you and the person you're working with. So a 4-year track record with someone that has to end, but it's what's good for the company and good for the organization. And just treat people right as much as you can. When it comes to commercialization and actually trying to get someone to buy your product, it has to run its course. This is really the hardest time for organization. Once you're beyond creating your prototype or your idea, getting someone to buy it is when most companies don't succeed. That's the highest fail point for organization. So I would say that Milton Friedman, I don't know if you guys know, Milton Friedman once said that when he was a famous economist, he wrote a lot of different papers, and he said, when I write a research paper, I build it, I nurture it like a child, and I let it out into the world. And if it succeeds, it succeeds. If it fails, it fails. Once you build something, you have to let it out there, see what the market does, and you might be successful, but you might not be. But don't be afraid to take that leap into the chasm of trying to create a product that's commercialized. because it has to happen. It's a natural course of an organization. And it's, it's not an easy thing, but it definitely has to happen. So I was CEO now. Great, all right. I was like, let's see, 26. I had investors breathing down my neck, 20 of them, from all over the US, from Nebraska, Iowa, Florida, New York, New Jersey. And I had to find a way to make this company work, or else now it's my fault. I got past this thing. So it was like scramble time, right? I got to run, I got to make something happen, or else this whole thing's done and I'm out of a job, and the company's gone and all our hard work is down the drain. So now I had to find our first client for our product. Now we're entering the commercialization phase. One thing my dad taught me, and he worked in pharmaceuticals, and started as a pharmaceutical salesman, ended up doing pretty well in his career, to say the least. He said, when I go into a doctor's office, I treat the secretary like she's the doctor. That's the most important thing. The person that you talk to at the front door, the front desk, the amount of respect you show them and the amount of level of communication you show them reflects on you throughout the organization. Because that's your first touch point, is that first person that says hello or says hi, takes your name, opens the door for you, buzzes you through. That's really your entry point to the company. So in my opinion, it's always been the secretary is just as important as a CEO, if not more important, because she'll probably talk to more people about you than the CEO will. So take that to heart. I think an example of that is actually, we're working on a project in the Caribbean, in Puerto Rico. And I was down there, and Puerto Rico's a pretty big place. It's compared to U.S., it's probably like the 23rd or 22nd largest city if you were to include it in the U.S. And I told my inside sales guy, I need to talk to someone at Univision in Puerto Rico about this technology. And he says, okay, great, I got someone, you're going to meet with him, his name's Nestor, you go ahead and you go talk to him, it'll be fantastic. He's exactly the guy you want to talk to at Univision. So I get up to this place, and it's this huge, gorgeous glass building. And Univision really made that their bulkhead for a while, and it was a really beautiful place. I get in there, and I said, okay, is this gentleman here? I'd like to speak with him. My name's Dan Hassan from BCM. Oh, yeah, sure. The guy comes up, and he's a junior engineer. Great. And a company that maybe has 500, 600 people working there at the TV station, I'm thinking, where's this going to get me? He walks me downstairs into the catacombs of a TV station, behind these wires and server rooms, into a small office with no windows. All right, this is fine. I have 3 other people with me. We think we're presenting to someone that could help make a decision. Start talking to him. I said, treating him really well and really trying to engage him on his level. And I said, we really need to talk to someone maybe on the sales side or the operations side. He said, okay. We go then, he makes a couple phone calls, speaks in Spanish, and I understood a little bit. And we go upstairs and talk to some junior salespeople that want to see the product. They like it. They want us to go talk to their manager, sales manager. Great. After about an hour of being there, from the time we walked in to go see the first junior engineer, by the time, it was about an hour from the time we went to see the junior engineer before he went and talked to the president of the TV station there. And the reason is because I wasn't disheartened by the fact that I got stuck with the wrong guy. I said, let me make an opportunity of this, treat him really well, and worst case scenario, he's going to say good things about us and it'll go somewhere. It doesn't always happen that quick, but if you treat people right and with a lot of respect, no matter who they are, you're going to get far in any endeavor you undertake. I would say also, when you try to sell to people, don't undersell yourself. That's something I kind of made a mistake of. Charge something to people. Don't just give it away for free. Try to make money every day in your company. And be confident about it. Be nice and be confident. It's kind of a joke I have with my guys. I say, you have to be humble. You still have to have swagger, though. You got to go in there knowing you know more than anybody else and you're confident. And you have to also be able to sell and be really nice at the same time. Someone said about George Bush, George W. Bush says, man, you got a lot of swagger. And he said, in Texas, we call that walking. You got to kind of go in there and you got to know what you're doing and try to get in front of people and kind of have it inside of you when you go and talk to people. Every client, in my opinion, is a partnership. When I talk to people that pay me money for the services I create and provide for them, I always refer to them as a partner. I never refer to them as a client or I'm a vendor to them, to their face. If I've done something wrong, I'll say, you're my client, I'll make it right. But outside of that, I say, we're a partner. We both have the same goals. It needs to be a win-win. How can we make it a win-win? Everybody wants a win-win. No one wants to just write a check over and think it goes nowhere. Make it work for everybody. And be thankful, but when you're also deploying, or making something happen with a partner, be firm. Execute, execute, execute. That's the hardest part of being in a startup or a small company, is executing. Your vendors and everyone's going to want different things from you. Your clients are going to want you to specialize, but you have to stick to your guns and really create a good product you believe in. If you compromise your product, you're going to have a compromised product that's not going to work. So this is our mascot in the office. His name's Hazoo, H-A-Z-Z-O-O. We just started a website that does actually local group deals named after him. The reason I'm showing him is because he's what's called a bearded dragon. He's just sitting in our office on a desk. He lives in a bubble. He gets fed every day. He gets water every day. There's a warm light shining down on him all day long. He's not in the wild worrying about anything. And I always think to myself, man, that's a nice life. Completely opposite outside of the tank, because it's pretty crazy when you're running an organization that's trying to grow. Kind of leads me to my other points, which is the evolution cycle for an animal is you either have to adapt, you have to move, or you have to die. There's an environmental change, you have those three choices. Adapt to it, go somewhere else, or you're done. So you have to be agile as an organization. One thing we faced was we had a competitor come into our space with $100 million of venture capital financing. We bootstrapped. We worked 5 years on it. We're thinking we're going to get blown out of the water and we're going to be done. Turns out we have more traction than they do at this point. Things like mobile television, connected television, environments change around you, but the question is how can you kind of live up to it and move with it? And that's the thing as a small organization. You got to move, you have to be agile, and that's your only strength among bigger, better funded competitors. You have to be quick on your feet. The innovation cycle is a way to stay ahead of your competitors. For those of you who don't know what the innovation cycle is, you throw a product out there, you get feedback from your users, it comes back to you, and you make your product in turn better. But since you have the innovation cycle of actually having a product out there and working with people, keep asking your clients or your consumers, what do you want? What do you want more from my product? How can I make it better for you? And by listening to their advice, you can actually kind of stay ahead of the curve by actually kind of mastering that innovation cycle. That's a different discussion for a different day, but I recommend you guys look into the innovation cycle. It's a really good way of looking at how to approach your products. Also, sometimes in business, when you're in a small company, you have to make a lot of contracts happen you don't like. You might lose money on contracts to sustain business. You might have to do things that just aren't as financially attractive as other opportunities to you. In Microsoft, went through a period in the late 80s where their only real client was IBM. They're the only ones that put their stuff on any computer. IBM owns every single computer in the US, and you're Microsoft, and you want to get your software on pretty much a monopoly at that point, a natural monopoly at that point. So Steve Ballmer used the term riding the bear. You give it to them just to get in the market, just to make something happen, and just to create enough to stay alive. So a lot of times out there, you're going to be in situations where you say, should I make the deal or should I not make the deal? As a small company, make the deal no matter what it takes. Just try to find a way to get a win. And we've had to do it before, and we continue to do it sometimes with certain clients. Just find a way to make it work. So during this cleanup round now, round 3, so we've been through 2 cleanups already, been pretty bloody, fired a whole bunch of people, hired a whole bunch of people, fired a whole bunch of people again. It's not easy. Cleanup number 3. We had 2 offices, and this is actually kind of happening still kind of right now, so you catch me at a good time. We had 2 offices, one in Boston and one in Summit, New Jersey. Good core personnel, really smart people, just not working out the way it should in terms of communication. So I had to take the approach of saying, okay, we need to just create one larger office in New Jersey. We moved down a fair amount of staff from Boston. I allowed some people to telecommute. What I'm trying to say is that you have to consolidate your roles sometime in an organization. As you kind of grow an organization, it contracts and expands, it contracts and expands, and you are forced to lose people kind of naturally and try to gain people naturally. Try to give as many people as many different roles as possible. I wear a bunch of hats in the organization. I can do everything from copywriting to some technical stuff. I'm not the best at it, but we can always help each other out and try to make it work. So you're not bound by titles in a company, you're bound by your ability, and you want to get people with a lot of diverse ability to work in your organization. Don't be afraid to ask more from people, because people can usually do more than you think. There's a lot of hours in a day. The West Coast is open later than here, so you can always clients to call at any time of day, and there's always something to do. Thank you. So you can always ask more of people. we had to reinvent ourselves. We were back channel media for about, let's say, 4 years. We actually just turned into BCM. We weren't really doing media anymore, we were doing technology, so we converted ourselves to BCM. The brand was getting old and tired, and as you run an organization, you have to reinvent yourself every couple years, or frankly, it gets a little stale, you kind of lose credibility on it. And the last bit. So kind of what does success look like if you're running a startup or you're an entrepreneur? Well, with long sales cycles in a company, it's about staying alive. Same thing with short sales cycles. If your doors are open, you're being successful. Don't let that get you down. Some days are good, some days are bad. Try to have multiple products when you start in case one works and one doesn't work. Backup plans. Really have to plan A, B, and C contingencies to really make sure you can kind of stay in the game. Relative success is tough to determine. You know, some companies, you look at guys who do things like mobile applications on your cell phones or guys like Facebook and Twitter. Their version of success is having a lot of users. Other people, it's money. You know, other people, it's top line, bottom line, whether they get bought out or whether they do an IPO. But try to define success for you and try to attack it, and you'll find value in your organization. And success is never guaranteed. One thing I'll say is you want to enjoy a lot of moments along the way. You know, a lot of companies don't work, a lot of companies succeed, a lot of companies fail. And it's about enjoying the moments along the way and learning every step of the process. And I guess the final thing I'm going to say, and thanks for your time today, is that this is America, and it's different than a lot of other countries in the world. My family's from Pakistan. If you were in Pakistan and you were educated, you would automatically pretty much go into the civil service. It was a safe thing to do. You would kind of get your government check, and you'd be well-to-do in that country. And if you went to do something on your own, everyone kind of said, this guy's a little bit crazy. What is he doing? He's starting a company. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And if you fail in a lot of countries, you know, China, India, Pakistan, etc., or you're kind of a laughing stock. Everyone says, that guy's a failure. He tried and he didn't do it. In America, you can always try and try and try again. And there's no limit to how many times, because that's what we were started for, as a place you could be free and do what you want. And no one's going to judge you for your past success or failures. It's about what you're doing today. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for having me today. It's a pleasure. Good to be here. Thank you.
Through these expansions and contractions in your organization, how do you think you could have planned if you could have you know, had the benefit of going back and redo everything again?
I hired people with the expectation that they could possibly work somewhere for a year, and then in the development process, 6 months out, they were no longer relevant. So I'd say give people expected timelines best you can, shorten the timelines, kind of under-promise to them. And that was something that weighed heavily on me when I had kind of cut someone short that thought they could be there. So part-time employees, outsourcing, consultants, some, yeah, but more getting specific work for specific projects is really where you need to be if you can afford it. And I'd say spend a lot more time getting more out of your people that you currently have than trying to hire people to supplement them in just during the 9 to 5 hours. That's a good question.
Dan, good evening. I'd say most of the entrepreneurial businesses start up with a passion around an idea, and somewhere along the line there's the development of a vision. And clearly you've been guided by a vision. How have you brought alignment among the people who have joined you in this quest, whether they be leadership or just people who have come on for the ride?
Right. You know, I was taught that a leader isn't someone that kind of sits by and tells other people to do stuff. A leader says, you know, charge, and everyone follows you into battle. So the goal is to get everyone behind you on the same page with a common goal and set short-term and long-term goals for people to reach. I think a lot of times in startups or entrepreneurial situations, you have a long-term goal, which is great, but people need short-term victories to get excited about. So I think by planting short-term victories along the way, which you can achieve, is probably the best way to get people aligned. Also, breaking down a lot of walls between people. So the finance guy should be very close to a person in sales who should be close to someone in technology. trying to break down any sort of title structure is probably another way to really get people on the same page. But that's a very tough thing to do, and large organizations, small organizations, that's something I think everyone strives for. So I don't have all the answers, but that's just my approach to it.
I have a question, Dan. How are you going to exit? Do you have a plan?
So thankfully, just recently we just had one of our patents approved, so I'm pretty happy about some of the IP stuff that's happened. You know, for us and a small company that's kind of in a growing phase, we realistically only have maybe 4 or 5 people that would want to buy us in kind of our niche market. IPO is something that is way out the line. I don't even think about that. I'm still trying to go period to period. So for us, it's either an exit to a large company, a merger with a mid-sized company for some sort of cash payout, or a sale of specific products or IP. So whereas before I think a lot of people started technologies wanting to do IPOs, the environment right now is no one really wants to go public if you can keep from doing that. So it's definitely a sale to another organization or technology company. But that's, let's keep our fingers crossed for that one.
Is your company still looking to develop new products in the entertainment space? And that's one question, and are you considering ideas from outside? Open innovation is becoming very popular, and wondering if your company...
Products. So we, off our core technology, we've now created about 3 or 4 different products and are continuing to innovate products. The question is, where's the hierarchy of how you deploy these things? So you might have a good product, but it might not be able to make money for you today, so is the investment worth it? So it's a classic kind of R&D structure. Usually the people that come up with products are people that have been there for a while, kind of seen the industry. We are open to a lot of outside people coming in, but a lot of people do come into certain spaces very bright-eyed and assuming that a product's going to be very easy to roll out, when in reality it's kind of tough. The hardest thing to do as a standalone kind of entrepreneur is to bang on the door of a company and get someone to let you in and show you their product. A lot of companies just aren't open to it, but we're still small enough where we're definitely open to that kind of stuff and work with a lot of other partners to find new things to do.
Okay, one last question.
Sure.
You're sort of in the mix now. What do you see what's next? I mean, there's all this media stuff going on from interactive TV, Google TV, and things
Right.
like that. What insight do you have into what's next?
Right. I think a lot of the big stuff in the space is going to be based off of what's called metadata tracking. So everything you see, everything you hear, there's 3 things to it. If you watch TV, there's 3 things to it. You have your audio, you hear, the visual, you see, and metadata, or hidden pieces of data everywhere. So what I see kind of happening in the future, if you're online, radio, on your mobile phone, is that people are going to be able to insert things, be able to track what you're watching in a much more robust way. And I think a lot of what we traditionally saw as valuation in TV space or valuation in media is going to shift away from, okay, I'm hitting this demographic today, I'm going to hit this demographic tomorrow, more than towards a more personalized service. So I would say there's a lot changing from connected TVs, where TVs are going to be internet capable, to now being able to watch all of your cable channels on your iPad. I think content's going to move around a lot, but it's still going to be what the consumer wants. I think the biggest hurdle that people have to face right now is how to get people to keep paying for content that's good, high-quality content. We have so much stuff online that you can kind of get for free anywhere else. So there's a lot of changing things in this industry right now, but it creates a lot of opportunities for people like myself and any other people that want to enter the space.
Okay, well, we will keep following your adventure here.